silent. Come on. This is another one. Did you know that somebody's going through a crisis and it's going on? Yes, it's going on. Oh, it's going on. I tell you, somebody's going through a crisis and it's going on. And they won't be silent anymore. Did you know that somebody's sleeping on the streets, y'all, and it's going on? Oh, yes, it's going on. Oh, it's going on. Did you know that somebody's sleeping on the streets, y'all, and it's going on? And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore.
Welcome, everyone, to the first annual Justice Together Solutions Rally. I am Rabbi Andrew Pepperstone, the spiritual leader of Ahavat Achim congregation here in Wichita, and I am honored, along with Pastor Rhonda Kingwood, to serve as co-president of Justice Together. Our beloved co-president, Pastor Kingwood, has taken some time away, but we are thrilled to have her with us here tonight. Pastor Kingwood, would you please stand for a warm welcome back? First, I want to thank First United Methodist Church and Pastor Amy Lippolt and Pastor Rebecca Goldtree-Moore for hosting us this evening, and their entire team of volunteers for making this evening run smoothly and efficiently so we can get some work done tonight. I will officially call us to order and invite our first Vice President, Reverend Dr. Pamela Hughes Mason of St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church, to open us in prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we are created in your image. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. Tonight, as we gather with heavy hearts, with concerns, with sorrow, as we witness the injustices in our society. But as we witness today and tonight, we understand that there is still hope. Let us be vehicles and instruments of peace and of hope. Grant us, O God, understanding and wisdom and courage to face each day. Let us know that through your discernment, through your witness, that all things are possible. Let us extend our hands to all mankind. Give us the tools and the resources that we need, that we may see and be a part of productive change. That every person within Sedgwick County or any place they're connected to may experience the power and the presence of abundant blessings through the work of our ministry. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. I invite our at-large officers from the Executive Committee, Reverend Deanne Smith of the United Methodist Open Door, the Reverend Andy Holtzberg of the Episcopal Social Services Breakthrough Club, Reverend Andrew Beers of Partners of Wichita, and the Reverend Andrew O'Connor of St. Francis Ministry to present and preview our agenda and how this gathering will happen.
For more than a year and a half, Sedgwick County's faithful have been building a permanent justice ministry organization, Justice Together. This shared labor of love has brought us to the pivotal moment that we are in right now. We are on the cusp of something truly transformative for our community. And we need all of you who are here with us tonight to not only answer God's call to do justice, but to invite our entire community to join us in answering the call on May 9th at the Justice Together 2024 Nehemiah Assembly.
Tonight, it marks one of the major events in Justice Together's annual cycle. We are coming together to, one, celebrate faith communities officially joining our network, to share updates on our progress toward meeting our Nehemiah action goals, and to receive research briefings from our committees that have been working hard over the last few months. Those of you who've been doing that, thank you. And to receive a little bit of training about what to expect at our Nehemiah action event.
As we do this, our goal is to build the unified voice of our network, which grounds all of our efforts in the shared value of justice to which our faith traditions call us. We stand over and against the culture of scarcity, hate, fear, and despair that permeates our society, and we commit to the cultivating relationships with one another that are based that connect with one another that are based in our shared values of abundance, love, hope, and promise.
As you will recall, the Community Problems Assembly back on November the 9th, 2023, was the last time we gathered together as a whole network. And so much has happened since then. Our objectives this evening are to reflect on and to celebrate the work that we have done so far, where we've been, and where we're going next. I now have the honor of welcoming my colleague, Pastor Chad Langdon of Christ Lutheran Church.
Good evening. I am Pastor Chad Langdon, as Andrew said, Secretary for Justice Together and pastor of Christ Lutheran Church. I hope you're feeling the energy and the excitement within your own congregational network. I hope you sense all the powerful ways that the Spirit is in this work with us. I know I do. Let's talk briefly about how we got here. In the fall of 2022, about 18 months ago, many of the faith communities here tonight met to just kind of explore the idea of creating a coalition of justice in Sedgwick County. In the spring of 2023, volunteers from many of your faith communities participated in a Rethinking Justice workshop where we explored how each of our various faith traditions call us to pursue justice. In the fall of 2023, many of you hosted or attended listening sessions that we call house meetings, sharing what local community problems keep you up at night and make you worry. Now combined, Justice Together held over 120 diverse small house meetings with over 960 people sharing their concerns. From those house meeting responses, there were 10 community issues that kind of emerged and bubbled to the top, including concerns about lack of affordable housing, homelessness, drugs and addiction, education and school safety, and mental health. In November of 2023, 500 Justice Network members gathered here in this room at a community problems assembly to vote on the 2 issues for the organization to address in the coming year. We also voted on the name of our new organization and elected an executive officers. And since then, more than 100 Justice Together members have been working diligently to understand those issues of homelessness and mental health here in Sedgwick County. And many others are working to build justice ministry networks within our own faith communities. And tonight we're going to hear updates on the progress of these networks and in the building up of a great assembly for justice and in researching and crafting meaningful solutions. But for right now, I'm happy to hand things over to Pastor Lance Carithers, our treasurer.
Hello, Justice Together. You are Justice Together. We do justice together. I am Lance Carithers. I'm the senior pastor of Woodlawn United Methodist Church in Derby, and it does my heart so good to be with you all tonight as we celebrate together the good work that has been done over many months as we formed this organization, this coalition, as we trained hundreds of volunteers, as we conducted extensive listening and research processes into injustices that are being experienced right here in our communities. Tonight, we will be inviting representatives from each one of our congregations who are here tonight to come forward and share a report from their congregational caucus that was held earlier this evening. They will tell us how many Justice Ministry Network members they have present here tonight, as well as the total number of participants that are being invited from their congregation to the Nehemiah Action Assembly, the number who have been notified of their invitation, and finally, the number who have already confirmed that they will attend. So I'm going to encourage you to feel free to cheer each community as they come and announce their progress that is being made toward building together our network of justice seekers. So we're going to have our congregational team leaders come forward now.
Okay, I'm excited. Calvary UMC, there are 48 of us here tonight, all together. Woo! We are inviting 219 people. 160 have already been told about this event, and 46 have confirmed. Go Calvary! Woo!
All right, I'm here representing Congregation Ahavat Ahim. Yeah, it's fine. Take it slow down. There are 10 of us here tonight, and all together we report inviting about 55 people. And 16 have already been told to save the date, and we have 8 confirmations.
United Methodist Church, we had 14 of us here tonight. We have together invited 70 people. 22 have been notified and 7 have confirmed.
East Heights United Methodist Church, there are 6 of us here tonight. We've invited 57, and they've all been notified, actually, and 13 of them have confirmed.
St. Mark United Methodist Church, there are 5 of us here tonight. Altogether, we're inviting 17 people, 8 of which have already been told to save the date, and 0 have confirmed.
I represent Mennonite Church of the Servant, and just for the record, we have about 15 people in the pews on Sunday morning. But we are inviting 29 people, 13 have been notified, we know 3 are coming.
Woodlawn United Methodist Church of Derby. We have invited 108 people, 87 have been notified, and 52 have been confirmed.
I'm from Hillside Christian Church, and we have 15 people here tonight. We've invited 60, 40 have been told, and I don't have an accurate number of confirms yet here, but we'll get them here. Yeah.
Martin Holler from Mount Vernon United Methodist Church. We have 3 of us here tonight. 32 people have been invited, 15 of which have been given the date, and 7 which have already confirmed.
Corey Swartfager with First Unitarian Universalist Church. We've got 18 of us here tonight, and out of those 18, we're going to invite 108 people. 71 have been notified, and 24 have confirmed.
Hope Mennonite had 22 here with us tonight. Altogether, we are reporting inviting 104 people, 50 of which have already been told to save the date, and 19 of which have already been confirmed.
I'm from St. James Episcopal Church. We have 51 people, or we have 6 here tonight. 51 people have been invited. 49 of those have been told to save the date, and 6 are confirmed.
I'm Elaine Harvey. I think we've miscounted, but we have 8 of us, 6 of us here tonight, and we have 8 people invited, 2 notified, 1 confirmed from St. Paul's. Here tonight, 5 invited, 5 notified, and 3 confirmed.
I represent Chapel Hill United Methodist Church. Tonight we've got 28 people here who've agreed to invite 240 people, 139 of which have already been told to save the date, and right now we've got 40 confirmed.
I'm Richard Vore with the Baha'i Faith, Mays UMC, and other. There are 2 of us here tonight. We have invited 9 people, and 9 of them have been notified to save the date. Unfortunately, we don't have any confirmed yet.
Representing Plymouth Congregational Church, there are 8 of us here tonight. We have 50 people being invited, 12 people notified, and 3 confirmed.
I'm Darwin Eads with Grace Presbyterian Church. We have 14 here tonight, 289 people invited, 211 saved the date, and 28 confirmed.
Nancy Brown with University United Methodist Church. We had 10 people here tonight. We've got 73 people on our invite list, and we've only started being creative. 11 of them have already been told, and 7 have already been confirmed.
From First Church of the Brethren, there were 6 of us here tonight,
and we report inviting 34 people. They've all been told to save the date, and 5 have already confirmed.
Alan Wanderer, representing Christ Lutheran Church. We have 22 faithful members here tonight. The number of people we have invited is 127. 69 have been notified. 36 have been confirmed.
The Andover United Methodist Church, we have 5 people here tonight. We've invited 16 people, 11 have been notified, and 11 have been confirmed.
I am representing Delrose United Methodist Church. There are 6 of us here tonight. Altogether, we report inviting 34 people, 20 of which have already been told to save the date, and 2 of which have already been confirmed.
I'm representing West Heights United Methodist Church. We have 9 here tonight. 81 people so far have been invited. 17 have been notified of the date, and we have 13 confirmations.
I'm representing St. Paul AME Church. There are 2 of us here tonight. Altogether, we report inviting 16 people, and we have notified 16 people to save the date, and we have 6 confirmed.
I'm representing Churchwomen United. There's only 2 of us at the caucus because most of our members are here with their own churches, so they're here anyway. We have invited 15, 4 have been notified and 4 confirmed.
I am representing Heart of Christ United Methodist Church. We have 3 people in attendance, 18 invited, 6 notified, and 1 confirmed.
I'm representing St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Derby. We had 2 tonight attending. We have 60 people will be invited, and 40 have already been notified, and we have at least 4 confirmed.
I'm Donna Goldtree with St. Paul's United Methodist Church. We have 9 people here tonight. Altogether, we've invited 61 people, and 5 of which have already been given the save the dates, and 2 have already confirmed.
I'm with St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church, and we've invited 18, and 18 have been notified, and 1 has been confirmed.
I'm with Aldersgate United Methodist Church. There are 38 of us here tonight. Altogether, we've invited 228 people, 181 of which have already been told to save the date, and 26 of which have already been confirmed.
I'm representing First United Methodist Church. There are 51 of us here this evening, at least. We have invited more than 141 people, but we can count 141. Those have all been told to save the date, and we have 80 people confirmed.
I'm with the Dwelling Church. There are 3 of us here tonight. Altogether, we report inviting 29 people, 25 of whom have confirmed that they have saved the date, and 4 of which are confirmed.
Riverside Christian Church. We have 4 of us here tonight. We have invited at least 23 people, all of whom have been asked to save the date, and at least 4 of us have already confirmed that we'll be here.
I'm Jonelle Davies from Lorraine Avenue Mennonite Church,
And there are 5 of us here tonight. Altogether, we report inviting 15 people, 2 of which have already been told to save the date, and 5 of them have already been confirmed.
Wichita United Church of Christ, we're still working. We have 32 people invited, and there are 8 of us here tonight, and we're having faith we'll have a lot more.
Hey, let's hear it for everyone. And how many did we just heard? Oh, you can do better now. This is something to celebrate. And when are we coming to Century 2? May 9th. While we're in such a celebrative mood, we have something else to celebrate tonight. We're going to invite representatives from faith organizations that have joined Justice Together since the last time that we were all together on November 9th and we signed our covenant. And so these congregations are going to come forward and they're going to add their names to our covenant. So I'm going to invite up Sally Huber with Church Women United to come and sign our covenant. Oh. Can we bring it down? Or that would sure be easier, I think. And while she is coming forward, I'll invite the next signer, Darwin Eads with Grace Presbyterian. As they are signing, I'm going to invite up Pastor Christina Monero with Lorraine Avenue Mennonite Church. And finally, Terry Glover of West Heights United Methodist Church. Now, as they come and sign, I want to remind you, our network is an organization not of individuals, but faith communities. Tonight, we're celebrating those communities who have undergone the thoughtful discernment process and made the decision to become chartering members of our organization. To become a member, faith communities agree to the following covenant as laid out in our bylaws, and the covenant is here in front of us tonight. First, they will build a justice ministry network within their faith community for the purpose of strengthening ministries with their own members and their community. They will involve a broad representation of their faith community in 3 annual processes. Those are the listening process, the research to action process, and the investment drive process. Then they will accept responsibility for the financial health of this organization by contributing annually and by supporting Justice Together fundraising efforts. They will select 2 representatives and 1 alternate to serve on our Justice Together Board of Directors. They will attend meetings of those board of directors that are meeting each and every month. They will work for the common good on unifying issues selected by the Justice Together Annual Assembly. And so let's celebrate one more time our newest, we have one more? Brenda Lilliston is signing for Hope Mennonite Church. My goodness, yay! I certainly didn't mean to leave anyone out. How exciting. As we cheer on these newest 5 congregations, 5 communities of faith that have joined our efforts, it is not too late for other faith communities to join our efforts. For more information, you can read the page that is in your folder titled How Do We Work, and find the contact information for that guy right over there that is handling the poster board, Louis Goslin. Louis Goslin is our lead organizer, and he's happy to answer all of your questions. Maybe you know of another faith network in your community, another church or faith organization that you would like to tell about our work together. Invite them. It is not too late to sign on. At this time, I think I'm to turn it over to Reverend Dr. Kevis Harding.
Reverend Dr. Harding could not be with us tonight. He had a death in his family, so we want to keep him and his family in our prayers during this time. And these are some big shoes to fill, standing up here in his stead. But I want to talk real briefly about our research process. Beginning in December 2023, research committees began working on our two issues, mental health and homelessness. And soon, in just a minute, these two committees are going to share their research and information that they have collected regarding these two issues, as well as the potential solutions that will be narrowed down even further in preparation for our Nehemiah Assembly on May 9th. Both of our research committees have been working diligently to gather research, to meet with experts in the community, and then to find solutions that will have lasting impacts on these systems to make them more equitable and just. In your packets, you will find a research briefing from both our homeless and mental health research committees with a summary of the research that they have completed. Also, some information from the interviews that they collected with experts, and a list of potential solutions that they have identified. As we receive their reports, we want to lift up the work of all 160 volunteers who have helped with the research process, and especially our steering committee members who have put in many, many extra hours in a true labor of love to prepare these reports. They have been working hard, y'all. Yes. So these are the members of our homelessness steering committee. If you would stand if I call your name. Our co-chairs are Deacon Lori Mills of St. Andrew's Episcopal and St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church, Minister Valerie Black of Delrose United Methodist, Sandra Steiber of Riverside Christian Church, Nancy Brown of University United Methodist Church, Reverend Rebecca Goltry Moore of First United Methodist Church, and John Burchell of College Hill United Methodist. Would you please give them a round of applause? And members of the Mental Health Steering Committee include co-chairs Reverend Joe Mead of University United Methodist and Reverend Wade Miller of Hillside Christian Church, Melanie Terhune of Chapel Hill United Methodist, Bob Nelson of Aldersgate United Methodist, Alan Wondra of Christ Lutheran, good job, Alan, John Ramirez of First United Universalist Church of Wichita, Brooke Burrow of Heart of Christ United Methodist, Carol Furrow of Calvary United Methodist, and Dina Davis of East Heights United Methodist. Give them a round of applause, please. The solution statements which these committees share tonight, they will not be the final product. During the month of April, each committee is going to continue to define and narrow these solutions even further so that each one has a single negotiable ask that is specific, measurable, and attainable as we present these in the form of requests to our public officials at the Nehemiah Action Assembly on when? May 9th. All right. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to our research steering committees and invite us all to listen to the results of their hard work of these groups.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Wade Miller, and it is a joy to be with you tonight. And tonight we gather to put a fire in our hearts. It's a fire we hope that is going to catch on as we spread it to others and show up in large numbers at the Nehemiah Assembly 28 days. That's only 4 weeks from tonight. So if you leave here with one thing in your head and heart, let it be this: invite everyone you know, right? So that together we can bend the arc of justice in this city. Now, on May 9th, Justice Together will call for improvements to 2 serious problems in our community. The first is mental illness, and the second is homelessness. I'm here to speak on our first item of our agenda, mental illness. Let me put our research on mental illness into a little bit of context. In a country where roughly 2 out of every 3 people profess to follow the greatest healer of all time, Jesus, we have steadily disinvested in the mental health system over the last 50 years. In return for our neglect, our jails have turned into caged asylums. We have seen our streets become homes to those who suffer in silence. We have watched emergency rooms become revolving doors for the desperate, each cycle leaving them more hopeless than the last. This is not just a failure, it is a moral and ethical betrayal of our very values, and we should not stand for it. Instead, we are called to do justice together. Now, some more modern history in the last few years offers hope of replacing that system of punishment and neglect in the area of mental health to a system of care for those who find themselves in crisis. We're going to watch this 3-minute video to show you a national movement that has taken root thanks to ComCare right here in Sedgwick County.
It's been a bad day. You've been in a bad car accident or experiencing chest pain. Fortunately, there is an emergency medical system built to respond immediately to your crisis. Now rewind. It's been a bad day, but this time it's due to a mental health crisis, like thoughts of suicide. The same emergency medical system that responds to chest pain also responds to this type of crisis and is less than ideal to handle it. Yet it is this system that responds to thousands of people in a mental health crisis every day. In general, everyone in a mental health crisis gets routed through an emergency department. There, a person in crisis often waits between 18 hours and 3 days for connection to mental health care. This approach is difficult for patients and wastes a lot of resources. But the Crisis Now model outlines a tested and proven alternative, a way to improve crisis systems across the country by expanding the options for those of us in a crisis, while reducing overall healthcare costs by creating a true emergency crisis service. And there are big savings in the justice system too, while dramatically improving the experience of the person and their family members. Drawn from current national best practices in crisis response, Crisis Now focuses on 3 components that help ensure an appropriate level of care to anyone in crisis. Component 1, a crisis call center staffed by specialists that coordinate all levels of crisis care. They evaluate the current crisis and can support and stabilize up to 90% of the cases they get. Those that need more, get more, with these hubs dispatching appropriate resources and then supporting those resources and finding the best solutions. Component 2, 24/7 mobile crisis teams that work in the streets meeting people where they are and for the majority, resolving their crisis right then. Dispatched by the call center hub, they lessen the burden on local police and reduce the stigma that some feel when a uniformed officer knocks on their door. Component 3, crisis stabilization locations, which constitute the retreat model, can offer short-term care for people who need support and observation, regardless of their level of crisis. These programs operate 24/7 and are the right door to everyone in a mental health crisis, including those that may require involuntary treatment. These high-tech, high-touch facilities divert away from the emergency departments and jails while providing immediate specialized treatment. Police no longer need to decide between EDs or jail. The no wrong door approach reduces the time needed to handle these cases from hours to minutes and allows police to go back to supporting public safety, a role they're uniquely trained to do. Let's review the impact of the Crisis Now model in Maricopa County, Arizona, 4th most populous county in the U.S. In 2017, Maricopa County Police connected more than 23,000 people in a behavioral health crisis directly to crisis care, and those people were accepted 100% of the time. The Crisis Now initiatives saved the time equivalent of 37 full-time officers, reducing wait times in emergency departments for behavioral health patients by a total of 45 years, saving local hospitals and emergency departments a total of $37 million in avoided costs and losses, freeing them up to help the patients they're designed to treat, while routing behavioral health patients to a course of care that's best suited to their needs, and reducing Maricopa County's overall healthcare costs by an estimated $260 million, more than twice the cost of Crisis Now services. To learn more about how Crisis Now can make a difference in your community, go to crisisnow.com and download our white paper.
As you just saw, this video summarizes the 3 features of an alternative system of crisis care that has begun to take root in cities across the country thanks to ComCare here in Sedgwick County. These 3 features include 1, a crisis center hotline 988 as an alternative to 911. 2, mobile crisis teams who will be dispatched to provide care to anyone in crisis instead of law enforcement. And 3, a crisis center where people walk in or can be taken in by loved ones or mobile crisis teams to find care instead of emergency rooms. So let me highlight these 3 things for clarity. First, in a fully operational crisis system, you don't call 911 for the police. You call 988 for care. Thankfully, ComCare has this in place, and it serves anyone in crisis 24/7, 365 days a year. Praise God. Second, if someone needs immediate attention, a complete crisis system would send people to where you are to offer care. They're called mobile crisis teams, and they would come instead of police who are called to handle public safety. While ComCare, Wichita City Council, and the Sedgwick County Commission have worked hard to make mobile crisis teams available 24/7, 365, the sheriff, staff at ComCare, and those answering the crisis hotline will tell you that the job is not yet finished. When you or a loved one are in crisis, need someone to come to you, and there's no one on shift at that time, you will have to hang up, dial 911, and call the police. We would never accept the police arriving to deal with a heart attack or with a stroke. We need people power on May 9th so we can demonstrate that we do not accept officers as backup during a mental health crisis. Finally, the third pillar of a full crisis care system includes a crisis center. This is where you would go or be taken by a crisis team or a loved one to receive care instead of the emergency room. Thankfully, we have a community crisis center in Wichita located at 635 North Main Street near the African American Museum of Kansas. At the Community Crisis Center, you can walk in or be taken by a loved one 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. A mental health professional will meet with you, provide an assessment, crisis intervention, and develop an individualized plan for treatment. You may also stay for observation. However, if you have been off your medications and you need a refill or a medication adjustment after hours or on the weekends, you either have to wait until a regular work day or go to the emergency room. We know this because ComCare staff told us it's this gap in services that keeps them up at night. And the hospitals are seeing loads of people who wind up at the hospitals. If a gap in medicinal care after hours is pushing people away from the crisis center back to the emergency room, then we're not only missing the opportunity to get people on their path to recovery sooner, but we're also losing out on the money saved at crisis centers when they serve as the viable alternative to hospitals. That's why we need people power and your voice to show our commitment to a full, comprehensive system of crisis care. So let me be clear. This is not an indictment on our faithful service provider. ComCare has championed crisis care with dedication and heart, and their commitment is a marvel. That's why we have asked ComCare and other stakeholders to join us in advocating for the funding and staff that they need to fill the gaps that remain. because we know we both share the goal to ensure that no individual in crisis is left with inadequate or inappropriate alternatives, like law enforcement intervention or emergency room visits. But if it was easy, it'd already be done. That's why we need to add our voice to their voice to make it happen. There is one last critical piece to the puzzle that we discovered in our research: transportation. In our research, we came across this study commissioned by the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition, who we have to go out of our way to say has done some incredibly important work in our community around mental health. They worked with a local addiction services provider to figure out the answer to two basic questions. If people had a free bus pass and were taught how to use them, would it reduce the use of crisis services like emergency room visits, police encounters, etc.? And more importantly, would bus passes increase participation in treatment? The answer is a resounding yes. A multitude of case managers and clients reported on the success of the program. One said, "I have a client who was able to utilize a bus pass to attend all of his medical appointments, obtain employment, work part-time, and attend 12-step meetings 5 days a week." Another client said, "Without this bus pass, I feel like I'm cut off from the world and cannot go to the places that help me." Who could have guessed it? If you give people greater access to treatment, their use of crisis services goes down and they show up for treatment more often. This pilot program provided help to 15 people. But Chad Harmon, the CEO at the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas, estimated to us that they could get similar results with 230 people. Going from what you see on the screen here to what you see here. That's why Justice Together will be calling to expand the pilot project next year and give those 230 people the transportation they need to get to treatment. So why do I share all this? What's the point? Well, here's the point. We've done our homework, and we found where we can lend our voice. If you're anything like me, sometimes you feel like just a small pebble on a beach, powerless little thing that can't do or say anything in the face of so much suffering in the world. But in 28 days, we will do justice together. Now, in the Christian, Now, in the Christian Gospels, we learn that the powers in Jesus' time began to plot his crucifixion after he did something radical. He healed a man with a crippled arm after hours on the Sabbath. It's not lost on me that here we are 2,000 years later, and we're still seeking healing when it may be inconvenient. I know what you're thinking. Who in their right minds would believe healing someone could be so controversial that you could end up winding up on a cross? But I dare say it to you now. We are being called to ensure that no one is left to suffer in silence or in darkness. Without fear of repercussions and with one heart, with one purpose, let's finish the job. Let's turn crisis into care. Let's replace punishment with support and carve a path for those who just need a bus pass to get to treatment. Thank you, and God bless.
Good evening. I'm Deacon Lori Mills from St. Bart's and St. Andrew's Episcopal Churches, and I'm here tonight representing our Homelessness Research Committee. As people of faith, we are called to do justice. We at Justice Together hear that call when we first listen. During our listening process, we asked nearly 1,000 people from across our community a simple question. When you wake up at night and you can't get back to sleep, what is it that is keeping you awake? Time and time again, we heard homelessness. Our work began on November 9th when we heard testimony from Dave Williams about his experience with homelessness. His testimony shined a light on the drastic need for justice to be done, and members voted to adopt homelessness as one of our priorities. In the 4 months we've been working on this research, we have heard that homelessness truly is a crisis in our community. In January of 2023, volunteers conducted the Wichita-Sedgwick County's point-in-time count, and 702 people were identified as homeless. Of those, 150 were unsheltered. Now, can you imagine what it must feel like to live with no certainty of where you're going to be safe and sleep each night, or how you're going to protect the few things that you possess? Can you imagine living in the same community, the one that we all share, but not having a safe place to call home? Is this justice? No. Is this the city that God intended it to be? No. Everyone deserves a safe place to call home. When we see injustice, we must speak up and we must demand change. It is an injustice that we have neighbors sleeping outside without a safe place to call home, and God calls us to do something about it. Amen? Amen. During our research phase, we held over 15 meetings with experts, service providers, public officials, and people directly impacted by homelessness in order to identify gaps in the system. We also learned that we have great opportunities to turn our community around and end the homelessness crisis. From our research, we identified 2 urgent issues where we felt we could make a meaningful impact. First, with housing, and secondly, with identification. We heard it repeated by the experts that we met with that homelessness is a housing problem. Not a people problem, a housing problem. We simply do not have enough housing units to fill the need, especially when we're talking about affordable housing. When there's a shortage of housing, it is the most vulnerable who are at risk of being pushed out. We learned that back in November when Mina, a Justice Together network member, shared her story. We know we need more units and more opportunities to help those in need. There are currently 7,800 families on a waiting list for housing vouchers in our community. Federal vouchers are not meeting the local demand. 7,800 families waiting. We also learned of the struggles people experiencing homelessness face in obtaining photo identification, really a basic need that many of us take for granted. You need an ID in order to get a job, to obtain housing, or even apply for benefits. We met with the advocacy group, the Alliance of Overlooked Neighbors, and heard echoed from those who had lived experience that the lack of identification is a prevalent problem. And if IDs are lost or stolen, it is difficult to replace them when you do not have the documents required for a state-issued ID. Tonight, we have a testimony to share with you. We have a video from Mel Pope, a member of the Alliance of Overlooked Neighbors, sharing her experience with homelessness and the work that she currently is doing now to help others.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to let me tell my story. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to share my story with you guys. I want to take a moment and thank you guys for your hard work with Justice Together. Hopefully, me sharing my story will help you realize how much of an impact it has on people everywhere. I started my path to homelessness as a drug addict. I was addicted to meth. Upon the bad choices I made, it landed me into homelessness. Throughout homelessness, I suffered from so much. From domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, there wasn't a way that I wasn't victimized. That's what a lot of people don't realize, is how becoming homeless, especially for a woman, it is incredibly dangerous. It was throughout this process that I ran into some hiccups. I couldn't get a job because I didn't have an ID. I tried to use Open Door to get my ID, but they are extremely overloaded. That's why it's important for people to understand how much identification makes a difference. Also, having these services in place to get that identification and that documentation. Without it, there is no way to climb yourself out of homelessness. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering how I got out of homelessness. When I was out on the streets, I became pregnant. Through this experience, I also found God and prayed to Him about what the right choice would be for my baby. He had told me adoption. That's when I found St. Nick's Adoptions. They helped me get off the streets and into a home. And that's another important issue that I think we need to talk about, is getting housing for the homeless. If I hadn't have ended up pregnant and pursuing adoption, I might still be homeless. Through my process of homelessness, I knew that I wanted to pursue a career with giving back to other people experiencing homelessness and substance abuse issues. I followed my dream and went to college, and I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology, and followed my dream back to Wichita, where I previously was homeless. Now, I am honored and privileged to work with young adults that are 18 to 24 years old, experiencing homelessness. I have got to see little successes, and I've got to see big successes. And I feel so blessed to see them change before my eyes, do better, and climb themselves out of homelessness. I help youth get their IDs back. I help them find jobs. I take them to job fairs to pursue careers. I get to give them everything I never had and get to see change in them. I get to see them get housed. I am now engaged and have gotten to develop a relationship with both my daughters, which I am extremely proud of. What we need to do to close the gaps of homelessness is simple. We need better help with low-income housing and housing supports. We also need help for identifications and with IDs. With doing this, you can be rest assured that closing the gap will end homelessness. With that, I'll wrap up, and always remember that the work you are doing is life-changing for people, and you never know who you are helping for those future generations to come. Thank you so much.
We want to thank Mel for sharing her story, and she's here tonight. So Mel, if you'd stand up so we could... And now, the other members from the Alliance of Overlooked Neighbors, would you please stand? And let's acknowledge them for the work they do. Thank you for being an influential voice in our community and in our work here at Justice Together. We must be better at loving our neighbors by ensuring that they have safe, affordable housing and the identification they need to rebuild their lives. We value the work being done by those service providers and government agencies supporting people in exiting homelessness. Many experts we have met with and work together in the Coalition to End Chronic Homelessness. Through their efforts, they have cut the number of homeless veterans in our community in half. That number is now half of what it was. We lift up the great work being done and stand alongside them to do our part to bring justice to our community. Our goal is to reach what is called functional zero. Functional zero means that the number of people experiencing homelessness never exceeds the community's capacity to move people into permanent housing. So how does a community do this? In many communities across the country have found success in ending chronic homelessness by fully adopting what is often called a housing first approach. Housing First prioritizes permanent housing for people experiencing homelessness, thus ending their homelessness and serving as a platform from which they can improve their quality of life. This approach is guided by the belief that people need basic necessities like food and a place to live before they can attend to anything else that is less critical to that. Through our research into solutions on these problems, our committee has brought forth 2 solution statements which can be found in your homelessness briefing that you received this evening. We met with Julia Orlando, who is a consultant on ending homelessness and who helped her community in Bergen County, New Jersey, reach functional zero for their chronically homeless population. Their community made a significant strategic investment to identify sites for permanent supportive housing, and they established a navigation center which serves as a single point entry for access to critical services and caseworkers, and it's all in one single location. We have a similar opportunity here in Sedgwick County. The City of Wichita is working on plans for a multi-agency center modeled after the center in Bergen County. Currently, there is an estimated $750,000 funding gap for the operation of the center. This funding is needed to provide vital staffing and supportive services. Next, we learned how communities are solving the barriers of identification through municipal ID programs. According to the ACLU of Kansas, 36 cities have successfully implemented effective municipal ID programs, and those cities have achieved improved community police relations, increased economic development, virtually zero identity fraud, and a more inclusive community. Kansas City, Missouri has set an example that we could follow. Our research committee went with their staff to learn about how they implemented the program. We will now hear directly from a staff member about the success of this program and its impact on people experiencing homelessness.
We had a gentleman come into the health department back in December, right before we went live with the Fountain Card, and he had fallen on hard times, was really looking to get his life back together, but he couldn't because he didn't have this form of identification. He asked us, when can I get one of these Fountain Cards? And we're like, oh, come back next week and you can get yours. He was really almost in tears whenever he was talking to us because he had been trying so hard, and this was kind of the one thing that could unlock all of these opportunities for him. We gave him all of the information that he needed to get one. We even gave him an application for whenever he came back and told him all you need is a proof of identity and a proof of residency, and it's free of charge for anyone. The city really saw that this was a need in the community. Seeing an individual be able to take that opportunity, this really showed why the Fountain Card is so important.
We have a great opportunity to follow their example City of Wichita staff has reported that there is a political will to create a similar program here. Through our power, we can bring officials together and get their public commitment to make this a reality. There are efforts to build the multi-agency center with supportive services and low-income housing, and we must call on leaders to ensure the operations are fully funded. When we work together as a community, we can accomplish great things. Homelessness is at a crisis level here in Sedgwick County, but there is hope. We can end this crisis. We can solve homelessness and reach functional zero. Our unhoused neighbors deserve the dignity of a safe place to call home and the identification required in order to thrive in our society. Our faith calls on us to love our neighbors as ourselves, and because of this faith, we must act on God's call to do justice. Thank you.
Good evening, justice makers. I'm the Reverend Sarah Marsh, and I'm the Mercy and Justice Coordinator of the Great Plains United Methodist Church. And how about those research committees? Can we give them some love and appreciation? So as we have heard, on May 9th, the faith community here in Sedgwick County will take on these tough issues, and we will press our public officials and public servants to consider these well-researched solutions to serious community problems. So here's what I'm here to talk with you about tonight. How do we do it? How do we move from research and ideas to powerful community change? How does change happen? Well, I want to invite you to watch this video from our friends over at the Kansas Leadership Center.
When you're trying to intervene skillfully, when you're trying to mobilize people to make progress on things they'd probably rather not work on, you got to raise the heat.
Raising the heat means saying things that are going unsaid or digging beneath the surface and really getting to what's actually happening.
People and organizations, companies, communities, they don't change unless there's enough discomfort with the status quo.
People know when they're in a crisis. They know when they need to act. You're creating a mini crisis so it doesn't get to a full-fledged crisis.
You do that by creating the environment where people start saying the things that they're really feeling, by raising uncomfortable interpretations that might not be the story everybody wants to hear, but it's a story that people need to consider.
I think our temptation when we get into heated situations is to try and calm things down. And so this idea of raising the heat is one way, it's one kind of tool in our toolbox that allows us to try to create something new.
Leadership sometimes is like having your hand on a thermostat and trying to get the temperature at just the right temperature for change to happen. Too hot, and the room blows up, the system blows up, the company blows up, and nothing happens. Too cold, which it's usually too cold, no real change happens. No real progress happens. Exercising leadership is about having your hand on that thermostat and getting the group, the room, the company right in that zone of productivity.
You do want to put some pressure on the system or the group in a way that doesn't cause them to storm out of the meeting, but you also don't want to put not enough pressure to where people don't actually care about what's happening.
In an adaptive challenge, when the heat gets high, you want to stay there. You want to stay in this zone that allows you to keep learning, to be curious, to stay on track.
You know you've got enough heat in the system when the real work is happening, when people are talking about what's really on their mind, when the adaptive challenges are being addressed. People are working in ways they don't usually work. They're talking about stuff that matters. They're not going through the motions. So part of leadership is helping people see the discomfort, helping sometimes bring the discomfort to the surface so that people get compelled to act.
What does it take to get people compelled to act? It takes raising the heat. So, while it's not always comfortable to do the work of justice, it's not always comfortable to be a prophetic voice in our community, it is what God calls the community to do. It is what God calls us as people of faith to do. It is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do to step into the public arena and to work for justice together. So here we go, Sedgwick County, people of faith, are you ready? When I say from this pulpit, this big old pulpit, how do we do justice? You say, together. How do we do justice? Together. How do we do justice? Together. How do we do justice? Together. Yes, and so tonight, as we gather together as people of faith, if we're serious about change, we have to get ready to raise the heat. To raise the heat, as the video said, into the productive zone. Not into the boiling over point, but not so warm that it doesn't bring any heat into a room. So how do we do this to get into the productive zone where change can happen? To raise the heat in the work of justice, we have something that we need to keep in mind. There is a fundamental difference between the types of relationships we have in life, between personal relationships and public relationships. In personal relationships, like we often have in our faith congregations, we want to be liked and we want to be loved. And this is good and this is right and this is what we were created for. But public relationships are different. They're not about being liked. They're about bringing justice to a city, making progress on the areas of change that we have identified. So think about this. When our city council members or county commission members come to the Nehemiah Action, they're not coming as our friends. They're also not coming as our enemies. They're coming as public officials, as public servants. They will be there because they have a job to do in this community, and they're the ones who have the authority to lead here in this county and to change injustices into justice. And so when we gather, we will treat our public servants with dignity and with respect and with one unified voice. We will ask them clear, straightforward questions. Questions that are not a surprise to them. They will be shared with them before they arrive, well in advance, and they will then be asked in return to give us clear, straightforward answers to our questions. So if you imagine this, leaders and representatives from Justice Together will be together on the stage asking these questions on our behalf. They will be well-trained, the leaders from Justice Together, and they will seek clear answers, even when this means dealing with discomfort. So take just a moment, check in on your own gut, and think about what it's like when somebody asks you a direct question. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. So direct questions will be asked, direct answers will be sought. so that we can be clear on what is happening. And as we are here as humble and respectful listeners, we will be prepared to act as a unified force for justice, even when the directness may feel uncomfortable. Why would we do that? We would do it because we know that healthy tension is the only catalyst for real change. That's why we would do it. So our representatives will be standing on the stage there for us, but we will be standing with them, shoulder to shoulder in spirit, because how do we do justice? Together. Our research committees have spent countless months making sure that everything that we will be asking on May 9th is reasonable and doable. And we expect that our public officials should be able to give a resounding yes at the action. From experience, we know that officials sometimes say no. And if they say no, there will be a sense of discomfort. There might be a lot of tension. It's possible, but healthy tension is not bad. And when we're honest, we know that tension already exists in our community. It exists when any person is forced to sleep in a car because they don't have access to affordable housing. It exists when a family member has to go to the ER to get enough mental health crisis care, and then they're turned away or there's not enough beds for them, and they are working in hospitals where there's not enough professionals to care for the needs of the community. Tension exists when a person ends up in jail but really needs mental health care treatment. And as a pastor, I can tell you, I know these people. They are members of our congregations. Tension exists whether we acknowledge it or not. But what is crucial for us, and this might be the most important thing you hear tonight, is that when we use tension in justice together, we use healthy tension to create change for our neighbors, the people that God loves. So how do we do justice? Together. All right, a little bit more honesty here. It's commonplace in justice work, and I've been doing justice work for a long time, that when public officials are asked to make concrete changes in a community, they will often respond in some typical ways that aren't clear or straightforward. If you looked in your packet, or maybe you were talking at your caucus, there's a list of these that are called the 7 Ds. You can check this out. So just some examples. Sometimes officials will deflect a question and say something like, you know what we really need are the churches to step up and to go out and find mentors for all the children in our community, and to volunteer in our schools, or to give more money to the charities in this town. But we know that our churches are already doing these things. And we know that no amount of charitable work can make up for broken systems. When our we got to know this. We got to know this in our gut when we get ready to come together, that when our public systems are not working, we must call for change. And so we will. How will we do justice? Together. Sometimes officials deflect, push it back on us, and sometimes they delay. Oh man, as a pastor, I've never done that. Saying, that's just not possible this year. Or they may try to discredit us and say, we are going about this work all wrong, and if we would just go to their public meetings and meet with them one-to-one, then we could sort this all out. And we're not opposed to that. But we do justice how? Together. One spirit, one voice, one unified, powerful body in this faith community of Sedgwick County, Kansas, doing justice together. And so between now and May 9th, this work is going to get really real. And so here I'm going to take a risk and ask you a direct, uncomfortable question. But here it is. Will you bring 3 people with you to the Nehemiah Action on May 9th? If you will, say yes. Yes. Not invite. Bring. Bring. But as you invite people, take the time to talk with them about what you've heard here tonight. Take the time to prepare them, to introduce them to ideas of healthy tension and direct questions for public servants and what we're talking about in these research campaigns and why it matters to you. And remind your participants who come to act on their faith and belief in this city that we're not afraid of healthy tension if that's what it takes to bring justice. Because we do justice together. All right, Reverend Ashley Prescott Barlow Thompson, it's all yours.
Thank you. Friends and fellow justice seekers, our Nehemiah Action Assembly is just 28 days away. So how ready are we? How big is our voice? Michelle from Justice Together has tallied up the numbers from our congregational caucuses, and here is where we are at. Together in this room, there are 408 people here tonight. Yeah, let's clap. All together, we report inviting 2,450 people to Nehemiah. 1,524 of which have already been told to save the date, and 450 of which have already been confirmed. This is a great start. And our goal is to have a powerful voice of over 2,000 people at the Nehemiah Action Assembly. If we want to show out powerfully in 28 days, we need to spread the word. We need to extend our invitations. We need to use the materials in our folders tonight to get people equipped and informed to join us for a night of justice on May 9th. As you begin to imagine who else you'd like to make sure is a part of the Nehemiah Action Assembly on May 9th, let's talk a little bit about the bullet points of what we've covered tonight, what to expect before and during Nehemiah. Prior to the Nehemiah Action, our steering committees will confirm which local officials will join us on stage that night. Research team members will fully brief the officials on the research and the proposed solutions, as well as the wording of the questions they will be asked. This is how the Justice Together will conduct itself at the Nehemiah Assembly. The night of Nehemiah, representatives from each research committee will give a testimony and explain the research the committee has done to develop a solution. We will ask clear questions that could be answered as simply as yes or no to each official regarding the solution. Our time is limited, and we want everyone in attendance to leave with very clear understandings of what our officials will or will not do. So we may have to interrupt them and ask for clarification. In order to stick to the agenda and to move in a timely manner, neither Justice Together speakers nor public officials will be allowed unlimited time to speak. Maybe that's okay, right? Those of us in the crowd will remain respectful at all times as we address these important issues. We are saying these things so that we will feel ready for that night, so that each of us will feel ready for that healthy tension Reverend Marsh was talking about. We want to be ready to support those who are up on stage that night, negotiating on our behalf and on behalf of those who are suffering in Sedgwick County, because it takes true courage to stand up on that stage in front of a large group of people and speak truth to power. Remember, we aim to have 2,000 people attend the Nehemiah Action in order to create attention necessary to drive positive change. Our community leaders need to hear our loud, unified, and unceasing call for action. To reach this goal, each one of us needs to invite at least 8 people. Justice Together has done the research for us. If we each invite at least 8 people, we ensure that 3 or 4 will join us on May 9th. I want to pause now, and I want to name the discomfort that I am feeling tonight. Maybe you are feeling some discomfort too. Do you feel it in your mind, your heart, or your gut? It feels somewhat exciting and somewhat uncomfortable to me to invite the folks that I love to attend an event that I know will create tension and conflict. That feeling is valid. It is natural. And I believe we can hold those feelings along with the belief that conflict and tension can create something new. Our discomfort around potential tension or conflict leads us to remember that God is moving and changing hearts and minds and helping us and the local officials that we invite to Nehemiah to find a new way forward for positive systemic change in our community. As people of faith, we are called to stand with the marginalized and those who are suffering in Sedgwick County. What might it look like for us to name our discomfort and choose to live in those feelings so we can understand in some small way the suffering that folks in our community are feeling every day. Choosing to do this uncomfortable work in the days ahead is choosing to answer God's call to compassion and justice, to suffering with. And God goes with us as we invite others to join us in this good work. We are not alone. Together, we have a powerful voice. With God, we will create something new. And that is what this work is all about. Lifting our collective voice so that the struggles of our neighbors can be heard. So how do we do this? We start by getting curious about who else we might invite to the Nehemiah Action Assembly. You started a list tonight, and let's add to that list now. Take a moment and think about your friends and family members who might be passionate about justice or the needs of people around homelessness and mental health in our community. This event, while lifting up some tension, may be right up their alley. They may just be waiting for a chance to participate in something that is meaningful and can make a real difference. Now, consider the friends outside of your circle. Does anyone else like me know someone on Facebook or Instagram whose posts indicate that they too might be fed up with the way that people are suffering in our community? Anyone else? Is there a coworker or a neighbor that you know with a loved one touched by injustice today? or anyone like you who can see a vision of a better world and has hope that everyone will have access to all the good things that our community deserves. We are looking for people who have a desire to change our community for the better. That's who we want to invite to the Nehemiah Action Assembly. Friends, we do not drive positive change by having strong convictions alone. We do not drive positive change by sending our thoughts and our prayers. We drive positive change with action. If you are ready to help your hopes and your prayers be realized in tangible ways in Sedgwick County starting today, please cheer the word action. Action. All right, let's do it again. Action. Action. If you are committed to making real change in Sedgwick County starting May 9th at the Nehemiah Action Assembly, cheer action. Action. You have your tickets. You have your flyer, you have your folder of content, and you have the Justice Together staff and the many, many leaders you've seen up front and heard the names of tonight to support you. Most importantly, we are in this together, and God is with us as we work towards action, sustainable, positive change in our community today. So let us all join in the action of justice together. Amen? Amen. I now invite Bishop Susan Candia from the Central State Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America to close us in prayer.
Wow. Thank you. I'm not sure what word or phrase to use first. This is absolutely incredible. The work you are doing together, wow. I have been serving in faith communities for 40 years. First as a parish pastor, then on the bishop's staff, and now I serve, as you heard, as a bishop of the Central State Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. My first call was in western Kansas, where they had a tradition of having an annual mission festival where they had someone come and speak and they collected an offering and had a great meal and so forth. So I, a brand new young pastor, had a brilliant idea that I would invite someone from Bread for the World. That is a nonprofit Christian advocacy group that urges U.S. leaders to do all they can to end hunger. I thought, this is a no-brainer. Who doesn't want to end hunger? And instead of being asked to give money, the people would simply be asked to write letters to their government officials to support legislation that sought to end hunger. Now, who could argue with that? Well, I quickly found out they could. And it wasn't about ending hunger. It was about getting involved in that advocacy stuff. My experience throughout my years of ministry is that while we talk about justice, we all know that God, regardless of our various faith traditions, we all know that God calls us to work for justice, right? But we are much more comfortable with charity. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with charity. We need it. But as I learned back in college when I became a member of Bread for the World, what we need in order to really make an impact in people's lives is to address the systems and the policies, which means we need to get involved with our government officials. In my tradition, we adopt what we call social statements, which bring together our understanding of Scripture and faith to address the social issues of the day. We are currently in the process of developing a social statement on civic life and faith. And this is the premise in this statement. In the biblical word shalom, the scriptures depict God's goal for creation and point to the nature of God's ongoing active engagement with it. God's power and love seeks shalom, the fullness of peace, well-being, goodness, truth, beauty, justice, freedom, wholesomeness, love, woven together for all. God intends that humans use and share the gift of power so that human structures and systems serve the intended well-being of all with good order and justice. You are using your power, your voices, on behalf of those who are often silenced, excluded, demeaned by our society, because you recognize that all bear the image of God. You are using your power not simply to individually care for those who are houseless and struggle with mental health issues, whose well-being is at work, but to actually change the systems and policies that continue to deny their full humanity and put them at further risk. You see beyond the rhetoric. You know, the church can't be involved in politics because of the separation of church and state, which, by the way, little digression here, those words are actually not in the Constitution. It is a misunderstanding of what is called the Establishment Clause. But anyway, you see beyond that and hear the call that as people of faith, we must bring our values into the public realm. You are taking seriously the values of your various faith traditions and are committed to justice, not as a slogan, not as rhetoric, but as hard work that changes the lives of people. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. And you are doing this together. Wow. Wow. You are coming across denominations and faith traditions, seeing and reflecting what each tradition means, standing on common ground, and making a powerful witness to society. In the midst of this partisan divisiveness where we are constantly arguing with everyone and anyone who sees things a little bit different than we do, overshadowing the purpose of working together for the common good, you are standing together. You are showing that it's not only possible, but that it is the way things need to be. One of my favorite hymns, again from my tradition, is about the power of resurrection. New life that stands against all that seeks to diminish and destroy life. The line in the hymn that I love the best, don't worry, I'm not going to sing it for you. You wouldn't want to hear me do that, is break the bread of new creation where the world is still in pain. Tell its grim, demonic chorus, get you gone. God the first and last is with us. That's what you're doing. You are standing where the world is in pain. You are standing with the houseless, those who suffer from mental illness, And you are proclaiming and living and acting out a different message, one of hope, dignity, life, and compassion. I hope you realize what incredible work you all are doing. And all I can say is thank you. And now, as we bring this evening to a close, I'd like to send you with this prayer and blessing. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, those who are houseless, those dealing with mental illnesses. Honor all people, seeing the image of God reflected in every single person. Love and serve God. Rejoice in the power of justice, in the power you have together, in the power to make a difference. Thanks be to God, and thanks be to all of you.
It's not the waking, it's the rising. It's not for good.